Hello there, people. I figured a little low energy today, so you'll have to bear with me. I figured that we'd take a look at a series called Berlin. I showed the latest issue of this to come out a few weeks ago, and I think it was the first issue in 2 years. That's issue 1. 1996, issue 1 came out. Issue 19 came out 2 weeks ago. Issue 2. As you can see, these are shorter than normal comics. I only just put them in bags and boards. For years I had them on my bookshelf, on a smaller shelf than a regular comic book shelf, because that's where they fit. Issue 3. The covers all have this design that slowly changes color in this background here with a close-up on the panel. And I finally put them in bags and boards because after, 19 years of being on my shelf, they started to get bent over, some of them. And if you look at issue 1, actually got, it's really annoying. I mean, I don't care that much because, issues, look at that, I got a crease right there from another book somehow being up against it that this was longer than, and it kind of got bent over a little. And the others were starting to get, I wouldn't call it spine roll, but they started to get rolled from being on a shelf with other small books. Wasn't good for them. That's why comic book collectors hate odd-sized books, by the way. That, what just came out? The Island, that book that they made slightly larger, taller, and wider than regular comic books, I can tell you is destined for failure because comic book creators hate, collectors hate odd-sized books for just that reason. Issue 5, because they're not easy to store, and even though I stored these fine for 15 years with no problem, somewhere around year 16 I had a problem because of their size. But anyway, I mean, I can remember in the 90s when Barry Windsor Smith's Storyteller was coming out, issue 7, which was an oversized book. It was kind of Marvel Treasury Edition size. People wouldn't buy it. I mean, that was a nice book, Barry Windsor Smith's Storyteller, if you can get your hands on it. I'll do a show of that one day. But people, I remember him complaining, saying, why won't people buy this just because it's not the same size as a normal comic? Well, there are a lot of people who don't want to have to figure out how to store something that's not the same size. At least this you can fit in a comic bag and board. Issue 9. Issue 10. But I digress. Anyway, Berlin, issue 11. And I just decided to read all these too. So, unlike some of the other ones I did taking a look at, these ones I just finished reading today, issue 12. Nice blue on that, I like that. So they're all fresh in my mind. These take place in Berlin in 1928 to 1930. And as you know, those were the times when, issue 14, those were the times just before and just as the Nazis were coming to power. And though this is historical fiction, I'm a fan of history, and I'm a fan of historical fiction, so these are right up my alley. Issue 16. It's a story of everyday people living in Berlin in 1928 to 1930. 17. It's not real, though the background is the battle between the communists and the Nazis, the fascists and the socialists, for control of Germany. It's not really about the people fighting that. This is the one that just came out a couple weeks ago. For the first time in 2 years, we got a new issue of Berlin. But we also have, if you don't want to track down the individual issues, which I don't blame you, because I doubt they're expensive, but I doubt there's a... We have Berlin City of Stones. This is issues 1 through 6. What's interesting, too, is the collections are actually bigger. You can see how that sticks past. The collections are actually bigger than the comic itself. Let me pull issue 1 out of the bag again, so you can see. So I found that because I like bigger. I'm not a fan of the smaller like those 6x9 manga size collections they have of stuff. I never like those. I like bigger. So it was interesting that they actually printed it bigger than the comic itself. So I liked that. But book 1 came out in 2002, and I think that was the last time I read all of these at once. Book 2 came out in like 2008. There's book 2. But I don't think I ever read that. I didn't get that till like 2010, 2011. I never went back and read them all. But it's by Jason Lutes. Let me give you a little sample of the art. Very nice stuff. I enjoy a very clean line. Oh, there's a flashback to World War I. In the main, there's a lot of characters in Berlin, but it starts out with a man and a woman meeting on a train. There are two, I'll call them our lead characters, but there's a lot of characters in this book, because though the plot is simple, it's complex. In that, I always say when describing things, complexity is just simplicity multiplied, and that's what this right here is. Because the story starts out with these two people. In 1928, the man, I'm not quite sure how old he is. He must be about 40, and he's a writer. He's a journalist covering all of the goings on in Germany. He's a German journalist covering all the goings on in Berlin, and he's who we're sympathetic to, and that he's not exactly pro-communist, but he's certainly anti-Nazi, and he just wishes everybody could be reasonable, but oh well, people aren't reasonable. And the woman is, I think they said she's 29 when she first came here, but she's from the countryside. She's never been to a big city in her life. She comes from a well-to-do family, but I you know what? I still don't know if it's her brother or cousin or one true love. They never quite make that clear who it is, but somebody she loved a whole lot died at the very end, 10 years ago, I think it was, the very end of World War I. They don't even mention if he died in World War I. I'm not positive about that. But it so traumatized her that she kind of dropped out for 10 years. She was, she just was living with her family, and she didn't get married like she was supposed to. She didn't have to start a family. Finally, her father, who was a businessman, was going to set her up with one of his business associates' sons so she could marry and start a family. And that's when she said, no, I'm going to art school in Berlin. Forget it. And so she fled to Berlin. And from there we get some classmates of hers who are all younger, including a woman who dresses as a man the whole time. She wants to be a man. She is a man, according to her. And so we get their story. We get the story of some of her other young classmates. We get the story of a model in the art class in the beginning who we find out is a burlesque singer. So we get that brings us to the burlesque club, where we get the lead character, the man. He has an old lover, girlfriend who he's still friends with. She's a rich kind of trying to look to distract herself party woman who hangs out in the burlesque club. She's all jaded. And then we get, I'll see, who else is in there? We get a family who's falling apart because they have no job. Mother, father, daughter, two little children falling apart. We get a Jewish family living, and it all interconnects. And all their stories are simple, but there's so much of them that it makes it complex. We get a story of a tramp living in Berlin. He's a communist. He's on his sympathies lie with the communists, but he has no home. He works with them. Then we have, like I said, a Jewish family, a grandfather who I think he emigrated from Russia. The father who's trying to fit into German society, and the son who's kind of caught between the father and the grandfather and how they should educate him. And then in Volume 2, speaking of the Burlesque Club, we get an all-black American jazz band show up at the Burlesque Club, and one of them starts having an affair with the art model, who's the burlesque singer also. So there's this whole story running through Volume 2. Some really nice detailed art in there. Some whole story running through Volume 2 of the jazz guys, along with everybody else's story, keeps on going. The two lead characters separate and come together, and separate and come to, their lives intertwine here and there. And it's just a really, like I said, simple but complex piece. I love it too because, like I said, I'm a fan of history, and sometimes they just give you a few pages of what life was like in Berlin. Like I think it was the one in the first volume. There was a mother, and there was like a page and a half of her making breakfast for her children, which is a completely different thing than it is. She had to get up, peel potatoes, I think she made some sort of potato pancake, fried them up. People are looking for coal to heat their houses, so it's like 1928 Berlin though it was one of the most modern cities around. There's the woman who's the friend of the lead character, who's kind of the bon vivant rich girl who jaded and like I said, completely different lifestyle. It's all of course recognizable. Oh, and there's the woman who lives life as a man as much as she can, along with the other lead character. She dresses in men's clothes all the time, often with a men's hat and glasses. And a lot of it is the underground life of Berlin that goes on, and it's not quite a slice of life, it's a many, many, many slices of life. And of course it's all with the backdrop of, the Nazis are coming to power, and there is political stuff going on with some of their stories. The Nazis are coming to power. All the there's the tramp there he is at a garbage can. The Nazis are coming to power. All these underground people, the woman who dresses as a man, all the characters who don't conform. None of the characters conform to the Nazi ideal. And you just know all of them are doomed. It's just kind of like, it's interesting reading, because through the whole slice of life thing, you're like, wow, all these characters, there's a good chance they're doomed. And most of them are unhappy anyway. Oh, there's 1930, New Year's Eve. That was interesting too, when the jazz band first showed up. Here they are. They first showed up and started playing for him, and he had many pages of them, just 3 or 4 pages of them playing there. No sound effects, no, just the music. I happen to know what the music of this era sounds like, so I was hearing it play in my head. So like I said, there's 19 issues out. These are 1 through 6 and 7 through 12. City of Stones and City of Smoke. City of Light is the name of the story, but the next one of these isn't going to come out for a number of years, I imagine. But it's Jason Lutes is one of my favorite creators, though he doesn't get to put stuff out very often. If you like historical fiction, if you like good comics in general, I say give Berlin and City of Stones and City of Smoke a chance. I'm happy that like this is the first time in a long time that I got to sit back and read them all together. It's kind of, I enjoy reading them as individual issues, but every 2 years getting an issue, I have to really use my memory. And that's another thing that you always hear people say they don't remember what happened in the last issue. Use your memory. If you don't use it, you lose it. So try to remember what happened in, no matter what comic book you're reading, try to remember it as you're reading it. Go back and look at it again, because in this age of the internet and looking things up on Google, you want your memory to still work too. But anyway, everybody have a good time out there and read some Berlin.